So the first thing I need to figure out is the width of my sides. So my sides overall from bottom to top will be 3 3/16. From that I have to remove the thickness of the soundboard. The soundboard will be about 3/16. So I'm down at 3 inches, and then the back will be about 3/32. So it's about 2.5 mil. So I want to leave a bit extra, but not too much, because that's extra work to finish later. So I'll put my sides at 2 15/16. So that's an extra 30 seconds from where my target is. So that's the thickness, the width of the sides I'm going to be cutting. So now what I have to figure out is which section of those pieces are as the best figure. Like those pieces were book match, meaning that they used to be this way as one piece, and then they've been cut and then opened up like a book. So that's what they call it, book match. But there's better sections. So if I look at it right now from the camera point of view, it appears that this outside section would be the best figure. So I've changed the angle of the cameras just to show you something else. You can see all the lines here, which were kind of hard to see with the quilted figure showing. Those lines are getting wider as they go towards the outside. The reason is that this starts to be more on the rift sawn, and this is the flat sawn. The quilted figure shows best on the flat sawn, so that's why we see more of it on the outer edge compared to the inside edge. The first thing I'm going to be doing here is making sure that my sides, that the edge of the sides are straight. If they're not, I'm going to put them on the shooting board, but in this case they were straight, so I was able to do the layout of the second step, which is putting the width we just talked about, the 2 15/16. I'm putting a line down here. I'll also label the good side and the waist side, and I also have an outside mark, which tells me this for the book match, this is the outside that's going to be showing. So on the bandsaw I'm milling the pieces, and then I'll put them together in the vise, so I can use a jack plane to clean the edges. And I'm taking very shallow light passes here, and as soon as I'm happy with the thickness of the shavings that I'm getting, I'll be able to clean the saw marks. And then at this point I'm using a sandpaper with 180 grit sandpaper, just to make sure that there's not going to be any tear out. So this is what I'm going to be using to thickness. I do not have a drum sander, which would be the best tool for figured wood. So basically I did the math with the thickness of the sandpaper and the thickness of the little side little pieces of wood that you saw. This basically is going to thickness the whole piece evenly, because when those little outside riders are going to touch the workbench, that's as far as going to be sanding down. And I'm going to get a thickness of 85 thousand. So that's going to be a nice thickness to work on to the bending iron. So I just finished the first one. It took about 40 minutes. Those little pieces of wood just stopped at the proper thickness. Like you saw, it was 85,000. 85,000 is a good thickness for figured material. You can go a bit thinner, but I don't want to go too thin on this one, because I want to have extra material to finish it up and sand it off for final sanding once it's bent. But 85 is pretty good for bending. Like you see, it flexes without too much resistance. It bends without too much resistance. So if it would have been a regular maple, I would have been able to get away with probably 100 thou, but being figured, because it tends to crack a bit more when you apply pressure with the steam, removing extra wood would remove a bit of the resistance, and it should be easier to bend that way. So we're going to get started on the second one, And once I have the two sides ready for bending, I'll get back to you guys. So here I'm using a piece of tape to lay out my two sides, so I'll be making reference mark. The center one is where the sharpest bend is going to be, so that's where I'm going to be starting. On the time lapse you can't really see very well, but I do have a more detailed video on to the second side that I'm going to be bending, so right after the time lapse. I did a longer version because after my video on the 2x4 ukulele, that I'll be leaving a link for it in the description. There was a lot of question about the tool and about the bending of the side itself. So I realized after the first side that on the time lapse you couldn't really see all the details. So you can see here I'm starting, and the first part is to make sure everything is moist without putting too much water, and then slowly letting the steam do its job, and like letting the wood fibers bend. There's going to be spring back, so like the first part here is to make sure that the first curve, which is like the narrowest part of the instrument, is taken care of, and then I'll be working on the bottom and the top side and coming back to that particular curve that I'm doing right now, just to keep it, because to keep it where it's supposed to be, because as I'm working on the rest of the shape, there's a spring back from this part and also the other part, so you'll see me going back and forth on that piece. And sometimes I'm going to be using the backing steel strip, and sometimes I won't. So depending how I feel about, like I usually use the steel strip when I have to apply more pressure, but once the side is already bent, I can just reheat it without the steel piece. So if you do wonder if it gets hot for the fingers, yes it does. Why am I not using gloves? Because I like to feel how the wood is moving, and using glove doesn't allow you that aspect of the forming and shaping. So whenever my finger slips and touch the pipe, it burns. But that's part of the fun, and that's how I do it anyway. But if so, this is something you're interested in, little disclaimer, maybe you want to use gloves while you do that. So at this point, I'm doing the last little adjustment before I'm going to be able to slip in the jig. So I'm making sure that you can see the spring back here, but I'm making sure that everything's going to fit in without breaking. So I'm readjusting all the curves because of the spring back, and then once I'm confident that they're going to go right in, I'm going to push it in. So at this point the sides are pretty wet, so I'm gonna have to leave them in the jig for at least a full day before I get them out. What that's gonna do, it's gonna minimize the amount of spring back, although there will still be spring back. That's gonna minimize the amount of spring back I get. So what I want to make sure here is that my side are uptight with the jig wall. The only areas where it won't be tight is where the two sides overlaps at the bottom and at the top. So on the next video, that's going to be it for this one. On the next video I'll be working on the tail block, sorry, the heel block and the neck block. I'll also put the kerf, and the bottom side has a taper. If you go back onto the drawing video that I made, there's a taper that goes from 3 and 3/16 from the back to 2 inches something at the front. I forget exactly what it is right now, but so we're going to be doing that. So I'll show you how to make sure that both sides are matching each other. So that's going to be the next installment. And thanks again you guys for stopping by and watching this video. Click, share, and like if you like it, or you think somebody else might appreciate this video. And once again, I'll see you next time.